Hi guys, John Stockley here from CVM Cymru. Welcome back to 52 Men of the Bible, the video series that we're doing throughout the course of 2022. We are on week 34, so we're really coming into the back third of these videos. And this week we're looking at a guy called Simeon. Simeon was around at the time of Jesus's birth, and he met Joseph and Mary and the baby Jesus in the Christmas story. You probably know it, but don't take knowing it as a reason not to read about it in the Bible. So turn your attention to Luke chapter 2 and verses 22 to 35. Have a read of that, and then once you've done that, we'll have a look at Simeon's story and what we can learn from that. Okay guys, so this week we are going to be looking at Simeon, and again, very like some of the other guys that we've looked at, there's not really a lot said about Simeon, other than I think it is a story that can sometimes be overlooked. There are a few things in there which I think are really helpful for us, but there's also a kind of like a challenge to us, which I'll bring out in a couple of minutes' time. But let's just have a look at Simeon for a start. Now, Simeon was an old man. He'd lived all of his life with, I think, a focus and a determination on the Lord. I think there's nothing to suggest that there was a time of his life where he wasn't particularly focused on God. And I think there's also a little bit of a hint, or maybe even a strong hint, if you like, that he was a man who knew the word of God. He was a man who prayed. He was prophetic, and so he knew about God speaking into his life. And I don't think he took anything lightly. So I think his dreams and his experiences and all of that stuff would have become I guess the material through which he would understand what God was doing in his life. Now, there's one thing here that he does get, and the one thing he gets is a promise from God, and the promise is that before he dies and goes into the kingdom forever, he will get to see the Messiah in the flesh. And so he's living his whole life with this lens, if you like, that I will get to see Jesus, Emmanuel, God made flesh. I'll get to see him, and I will get to hold him in my own arms. And so this one day, 8 days after Jesus is born, Simeon is led, is directed, instructed maybe even by God, to go to the temple. And as he's there, in walks Joseph and Mary. And they've got the baby Jesus with them. They're about to get Jesus circumcised. And they walk past Simeon, and Simeon knows. He absolutely knows that this baby is the Messiah. He knows that he is Jesus, Emmanuel. And so he steps forward and he talks to Mary, and Mary offers him the opportunity to hold Jesus in his arms. Can you imagine what that would have felt like for Simeon? I mean, this whole life that he lived with determination, focus on God, and that promise that he would see Jesus in the flesh before he died. And so everything becomes crystal clear to him. And this this promise is fulfilled. And he is able to know that whenever his time is up, whenever he dies, that promise has properly been fulfilled. Now, that's all well and good, isn't it? That's fantastic. Love that. But here's the rub. In that moment when he's holding Jesus in his arms, Simeon gets a prophetic word, and he speaks that out over Jesus and over Mary. And he predicts that Jesus will be spoken against and that Mary's heart is going to be pierced by a sword. I mean, it's the first moment in Mary's life now where she gets a clue that the child she's given birth to is going to suffer horrendously, and it's going to break her heart. And Simeon, given a promise that he would see the Messiah in the flesh, was also given a task that was not enviable. Why would anyone want to give that message? It was horrific to have to give Mary that message, something many of us would definitely try and shy away from. Now, I think Simeon teaches us a lot, doesn't he? He teaches us that for us to walk the narrow path, for us to hear from God on a regular basis, we need to be determined and focused. We need to be willing to hear what God is speaking into our lives. Now, we could be more focused on earning enough money to have a pleasant and fruitful retirement, playing golf, going on lovely holidays, cruises, and all sorts of stuff like that. Or we can be focused on the kingdom, and we can say, whatever you've got planned for me, God, I want to hear your voice, and good or hard, I want to do what you're calling me to do. So guys, have a think this week through the life of Simeon. We don't know much about it, and it's not many verses to read, is it? But are we that focused on God? Are we that determined to live for him? Are we praying daily? Are we reading his word daily? Are we looking for and interpreting life situations as God speaking into our life and leading us and guiding us? And are we willing to do what God is calling us to do? It's a challenge, isn't it? But Simeon's a great guy, and so many of us have looked over his story in that whole Christmas narrative. Or maybe from now on, we will be mindful of Simeon, and we will remember that actually God sometimes calls us to be attentive, to be determined, to be focused on him, and then to be ready. Remember, Dyma fi, anfon fi, here am I, send me. That's where we need to position ourselves. Have a great week, guys, and I will speak to you again soon.